Welcome to the Andersons. I'm Pat Bowe, CEO of the company. We want all of our contractors to go through safety training and understand our environmental health and safety rules so that everyone working at our sites can go home to their families safely every night. Our employees and our contractors have the opportunity to work safely at all Anderson locations. So please pay attention to these videos and training you're now about to see. Thank you for working safely at the Andersons.
Welcome to the Andersons. Our company has an essential accountability to safeguard life, health, property, and the environment for the well-being of everyone involved. This Andersons Contractor and Visitor Program has been created to provide you with policies and procedures that ensure your safety and contribute to our goal of zero harm while working at our facilities. The Andersons requires that all contractors and visitors entering an Andersons facility complete this orientation. Next, our contractors' safety policies present the guidelines and rules for contractors performing work at any of our company facilities. When a contractor enters an Andersons facility, he or she should check in at the designated facility location and sign the visitor's log. This should be done each time the contractor enters or exits the facility. All posted speed limits must be followed at all times. All stop signs must be obeyed. All vehicle travel must be done safely. This includes, but is not limited to, no personnel riding in the back of pickup trucks or on the side of payloaders, forklifts, or any other mobile equipment, which could result in bodily injury. Contractors who are performing work at Andersons facilities are required to exercise the same level of concern for safety, health, and environmental protection as do company personnel, while complying with all applicable federal, state, and local regulations. This policy establishes the minimum criteria for contractor safety compliance while on company property. All contractors and contractor employees will be expected to participate in a job-specific safety policy and procedures review conducted by an Andersons representative in advance of starting any work. Subcontractors are also required to participate in the review. The contractor safety checklist will be used to document the training and a test given to gauge comprehension. The facility representative will designate a primary contact for each contractor upon completion of our contractor safety program. At the end of this video, or when the contractor arrives on site, your facility representative will define for you the potential hazards and required controls associated with performing work at our facility, including no smoking areas, hazardous energy, lockout, tagout requirements, confined space entry requirements, hot work permit requirements, accident, incident, and reporting requirements, on-the-job drug and alcohol use prohibitions, environmental protection and waste disposal requirements, and any others that may apply. A facility representative will provide you with all site-specific safety requirements prior to starting the project. The Andersons no smoking policy is meant to eliminate the possibility of fire and dust explosions occurring from unlawful smoking in restricted areas. It is also intended to help minimize the negative health effects associated with environmental tobacco smoke. Smoking is not allowed at any of the Andersons ethanol locations. If smoking is allowed in other Andersons facilities, these areas will be communicated to you by the facility representative. Any failure to abide by this may result in termination of the project. The Andersons has 3 cardinal safety rules that, if not followed, can result in serious injury or death to an employee, visitor, or contractor. These rules are: 1. No person shall fully enter a permit-required confined space without completing a confined space entry permit. 2. No person shall place any part of their body into an area of a machine or piece of equipment or remove a guard without a lockout device in place. And 3. No person shall perform elevated work above 4 feet without fall prevention safeguards in place. Failure to follow these rules will result in the contractor or visitor being removed from the site. Our confined space entry policy, one of our 3 cardinal safety rules, establishes guidelines for contractors performing work at our facilities. Confined spaces may include storage bins and tanks, rail cars, scales, tunnels, etc. Each of our facilities has an inventory of confined spaces, with documented entry procedures for each space. This permit needs to be kept at the job site for the duration of the job. Your facility representative will communicate to you how long the permit is valid. Failure to complete a permit will result in the contractor or employee being removed from the site. Contractors must adhere to the Anderson's confined space entry procedures, designed specifically for each confined space. Contractors must supply their own entry equipment and tools. The Anderson's Control of Hazardous Energy policy, a cardinal safety rule, states that all equipment that presents unexpected energization and startup hazards will be positively locked out and tagged to prevent accidental starting, movement, or release of energy. Both locks and tags in conjunction are required. Contractors performing work on company property are required to abide by this policy. Each piece of equipment has a written lockout-tagout procedure. Contractors performing any control of hazardous energy work must follow the written procedure for the equipment being serviced. Equipment-specific procedures can be obtained from the facility representative. All contractors must review and abide by the applicable lockout and tagout procedure. Any failure to abide by this may result in termination of the project. Another cardinal safety rule is our fall protection policy, which establishes procedures for working at heights and on work platforms of varying elevations. The policy requires the use of fall protection for those working at elevations of 4 feet or more, which do not have railings, or for working from a portable platform. Only competent and trained personnel shall be authorized to use the fall arrest equipment. All equipment must be inspected before use. Any equipment in disrepair is not to be utilized. All involved personnel must wear a body harness attached to a lanyard or other fall-limiting device. The lanyard or fall-limiting device must be attached to an anchor point that is capable of supporting 5,000 pounds per person and must be approved for use by a qualified person. When working near high voltage lines, maintain 10 feet of clearance from the lines and disconnect the power lines using lockout-tagout procedures. Failure to use fall protection equipment working at elevations of 4 feet or more will result in the contractor or visitor being removed from the site. Our accident incident reporting policy requires that all accidents or incidents that result or could result in injury or exposures to visitors, contractors, or employees, any property damage or fire must be immediately reported and properly investigated. All contractor, visitor, and employee or customer accidents, as well as property damage, incidents, regardless of seriousness, must be reported to the facility representative. The facility representative will ensure that the proper documentation is completed. The electrical safety policy indicates that all contractors must follow the appropriate procedures and use the proper equipment when working on electrical systems. This policy establishes procedures for working with electrical fixtures, wiring, fuses, and other electrical components. Contractors must have sufficient training and certification to ensure the safe performance of all electrical tasks. Contractors must abide by this policy when engaged in electrical work. Only trained and authorized contractors are allowed to perform electrical work. Only certified electricians are authorized to do electrical work on high voltage or on greater than 600 volt systems. Access to affected work areas must be limited while electrical work is in progress. The work area must be kept clean. Contractors must have an energized work permit completed prior to starting any electrical work. To de-energize equipment that is to be worked on, contractors must follow the company's Control Hazardous Energy Source, lockout and tagout equipment-specific procedures, a cardinal safety rule. Failure to use lockout-tagout devices will result in the contractor or visitor being removed from the site. Proper personal protective equipment must be used when performing electrical work. Depending on the job to be done, hard hats, safety glasses, insulating rubber gloves, insulated boots, or other equipment may be required. The purpose of our company's hot work permit policy is to reduce the potential of fire and dust explosions. A hot work permit must be used when performing hot work activities. No welding, cutting, burning, or other flame or spark-producing operations are to be performed without a permit, except inside the approved areas. For example, a maintenance shop. Permits are to be issued by the facility representative or their designee, and permits will be issued only after the area has been inspected and it has been determined that adequate precautions have been taken. Permits will be issued for each hot work job upon completion of the project. Hot work permits must be turned in to the facility contact. Hot work fire watch must be provided as outlined on the hot work permit. Failure to abide by the Andersons' hot work policy may result in termination of the project. All contractors must wear the appropriate personal protective equipment in all designated areas. Our personal protective equipment policy defines the operational areas that require the use of a high-vis vest or shirt, protective eyewear, safety toe shoes, and hard hats. Hard hats must be worn in designated areas. All affected contractors must wear the appropriate eye protection in designated areas where the potential for eye injuries exists. Gloves are required at all sites. Your facility representative will advise you if hearing protection is required at the end of this video or when you arrive on site. The Andersons strives to provide a safe workplace for all employees and contractors. Our workplace violence policy states that any acts of workplace violence committed by or against company employees or contractors will not be tolerated. Furthermore, employees and contractors are prohibited from making threats or engaging in violent activities that may impact the workplace. Among other prohibitions include intentionally damaging employer property or the property of another employee, and possession of a weapon. These weapons include, but are not limited to, the possession of handguns, other firearms, explosives, and knives while on company property. Any disregard of this policy may result in termination of the project. Each Andersons facility has a detailed emergency action plan. This plan deals with fires, explosions, natural disasters, spills, and releases. Facility-specific emergency information will be provided to you by the facility representative. And last but certainly not least is our worker right-to-know policy. The company hazard communication program has been developed to ensure that contractors are made aware of potential chemical hazards at the facility. If chemical hazards are present, the Andersons will provide contractors with the information needed to protect themselves. This will include SDS sheets and personal protective equipment requirements. If hazardous chemicals are brought to our facility by the contractor, the facility representative must be notified. This concludes the Andersons Contractor and Visitor video program.